All right, welcome to the Junk Connoisseurs. This is Alex, and you're here with these two d***heads, Alan and Jordan.
He gets more and more belligerent every time he introduces us.
He's just trying to keep up with you.
Hi, I'm Alex, and you guys.
You, San Diego.
That's what I was going with.
Go yourself, San Diego.
So, did research. The Mitsubishi Pajero is pronounced thusly in American, and a Pajero, probably need to bleep that, is actually a chronic masturbator.
Okay, I actually did look up the pronunciation, and I was going to apologize, except you're, being all high and mighty about it. So
I just learned it from you. But yeah, I looked that up, and I was like, because one of the pronunciation things I looked up was like, it was some very obvious Spanish teacher lady who was far too pure to explain that, and she wouldn't even say the soft J or whatever. She would say Pajero and was like, no.
So what is Pajero then in Spanish?
It's nothing.
It's nothing because they don't have that hard J sound.
No.
It's like
So it's a Mitsubishi Wanker?
Yes.
Basically.
Wonker. It's pronounced Wonker.
That woman was like, Mitsubishi didn't do any research, and they chose a word that just strung some syllables together, and then it turned out to be this.
So it was a very misfortunately named vehicle
Yes.
on the world stage. Not that we would even know it, not being native Spanish speakers.
We'll put it up there with the Toyota Merde and the Ford Ton of Butter.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Chevrolet Nova in Spanish-speaking markets, I heard, got a little bit of a laugh.
It's a little bit of a laugh. Apparently that's not conjugated correctly to actually be doesn't go, but it's like, forget it. It's like doesn't would go or something like that. It's like it's the wrong participle or some such. I don't know. But it is kind of funny. Yeah.
No to go, like bear. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's not. It's probably not that simple, but I wonder if there's any other misfortunately or inappropriately named vehicles out there. Hit us up. We'll probably find some too.
The guy I used to work with had been in the Air Force and was stationed in Japan, well, in Okinawa, and there's a picture of him smoking a cigarette under a big billboard that says "Please no smorking" at a train station. Yeah,
I can't hardly not think of smorking now when I see no smoking signs, and I think that's a direct result of the English blog. The used to be a website. Was it a website? Was it a?
It was a blog before we had such words for things.
Yes.
Like 2004.
Yes.
Oh boy.
English, which was a lot of really bad translations. So your Chinese tools that you
Yes.
get and signs from places where they want English-speaking people not to do stuff. Those are usually pretty funny.
Yeah. We had I may have mentioned this before, but I was in high school, so 2001 to 4, somewhere in there. My parents had bought a electric sit-on scooter from the predecessor to Harbor Freight. So you bought tools out of the back of a semi truck in a parking lot.
I remember that.
Like
The
at
tool
the Knights
sales.
of Columbus
The
parking
traveling
lot.
tool
Yes.
sale.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
still have some of
the carnival
those
of
that have
tools.
lasted. Yeah.
So it was this plastic sit-on scooter thing with rubber tires. It was electric, whatever. But the instruction manual was gold because it talked about how you were supposed to, when the moon rised, you were supposed to do something with the sun, and it was grade A. Poor translation, and oh man, we had many a laugh reading through that manual.
That's good. Yeah.
It was garbage.
The scooter was possessed.
Yeah.
When the moon rised, go to graveyard, get holy water. Take holy water with.
No, I wish I remembered some more lines from that, but it was just chock full of,
Oh yeah.
what does this even mean? It has no context at all, and
That's the Asian way of doing it. The European way of doing it is pictograms that don't always make sense. And don't always reference all the pieces you're supposed to put in there.
Thinking of IKEA furniture instructions, yes.
I don't know why that guy's always smiling.
What else happened this week? Anything good? I found out. I didn't find out. I was trying to sell my Crown Vic. Had a guy want to come look at it. We met, took it for a drive, and pulled back into the parking lot where we met. And he's like, I think it's leaking something. Well, that's weird. This thing has never leaked a drop. I'd been telling him how reliable it's been for us while we're driving the car. Sure enough, man, it's just pouring fluid out of the rear main seal area, bell housing area. Like, what in the world? And so, with eyes glued to the oil gauge and the oil pressure gauge and the temperature gauge, I hightailed it back home and got out, and it's pouring stuff out of there. Shut it off, and I hear hiss coming from under the hood. So okay, this is coolant, what I'm seeing, and it made sense. I looked at it; it looked more like brown water. It didn't look healthy, but got to look. It took me 10 minutes to find the leak, and on a Ford 4.6, there's a coolant tube. No, it's not a hose. There's a coolant tube that comes out of the back of the water pump casting on the block, where the water pump mounts to the block, and it runs directly underneath the intake manifold, and then comes up at the back of the engine under the intake manifold, and it's a heater hose. It goes to the heater core. So there's a metal pipe under there with there's a little junction down there that has failed due to rust or failed O-rings. I actually got it apart just before coming up here. It's broken. The little fitting that comes out of the back of the block is broken. So something I did not even know existed on that car. Of course, there's lots of things on that car I don't know exist. But what's really scary is I could have been anywhere in that car right now, miles from home, have been many times, and that could have happened, and I couldn't fix that on the side of the road. Yes, that would be like, well, we're staying here until somebody opens their garage and fixes it for us. Fortunately, I have a feeling it's a pretty well-known failure by anybody who's worked on these things for very long, so that would be good. Yeah,
I suspect that's one of those things. When you replace the plastic intake that has failed, you do the tube at the same time.
Well, as a guy who has replaced the plastic intake that has failed and did not do that because I didn't know it exists. Yes, you should. If you have experience, you probably do. But for those of us who don't know no better.
They should just sell the top of the motor kit. Here's your intake, your gaskets, your tube.
Well, now I know that. Yeah, now I know that. And that's why your mechanics make good money. It's the experience to know to do that kind of stuff. It's like it will add $5 worth of labor and $50 worth of parts that you don't want to have to pay $1,500 in other labor to get to in the future. That's a fact. And I told the guy, he actually saw as I was leaving. He's like, I don't think that's my car leaking. I think that was somebody before me that was in this parking spot, and whenever I left, he called me. He's like, "Nope, it's you leaking."
Oh, he actually was following you out.
And he just saw me, and he called and said, so I was like, "Thanks." And I kind of left this part out of the story earlier, but I stopped halfway home at a convenient spot and got out and looked under the car and could see it dripping. And so this water was running down the intake valley of the 4.6, and there's a little plug at the back that's not watertight and running down the back of the engine is what was going on. And so it filled up the valley, I'm sure. But I told the guy, thanks a lot for letting me know that it was in fact me, because I had just written it off in my mind. It's from some other car that parked there before me.
He's trying to bargain, and that's a really reasonable
I'd
thing
be worried
to say,
about it too if I saw a leak under a car, but we were at a gas station when 10 cars had been in there in the last hour before us. But I'm real happy that it failed before I sold it to somebody instead of, okay, here's your money, and he gets home and is like, hey, how long's this thing been leaking? Well, I don't think it's ever been leaking. Honestly, I'm glad it failed on me rather than, granted, anything could go wrong with that car at any time, and I shouldn't feel bad about it.
It has pushing 300 now, doesn't it?
Not that one, no. That was less than 200,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Barely broken in.
And that's what they'd say. It's thoroughly broken in, but it's a good car.
Fresh as a late winter daisy.
Late winter daisy.
Fresh as a Sunday pie.
So we're here today because we're talking about stuff. What are we talking about today?
It's your turn.
No, it's not. It's your turn.
It's your turn.
No, it's not.
No, it's my turn.
Alan's trying to get a rise out of us by making us think he didn't prepare a topic for tonight.
If it's my turn. Thanks for listening, folks.
Catch y'all on the flip side. All right, so I have prepared a vehicle. Okay, I'll give you a little hint. It is 2 out of 3 ain't bad on the Alex trifecta.
Front wheel drive V8.
It
Manual.
It is a manual front-wheel drive V8.
Okay, yeah.
I found one.
He did. Okay, so this is
That would be
it's not okay.
very
It's not.
funny.
is.
That wasn't a
I bet.
Cord or something.
So my first guess is that it's V8 rear-wheel drive with no manual transmission available.
Wrong.
Am I right? Okay, I'm wrong. So it's then not a V8 in the other two.
Yep.
Accurate.
Okay. Chapman, been involved?
I was going to say no, but very loosely.
Okay.
This actually uses licensed Lotus technology, and I think it was the first mass production car to use this licensed Lotus technology.
Okay.
That's an interesting one.
And as for the others, no Iron Duke, and Chrysler nowhere near it.
Okay. So is it an Asian car?
It is.
It is. Okay.
All right. So manual, rear wheel drive. Lotus is tangentially involved. Turbos or no?
No turbos.
0 turbos.
Strictly naturally aspirated.
Okay.
Were the cylinders arranged in a straight line?
A single straight line of cylinders.
Okay. Straight six.
No. 4.
Could be 4.
Yeah.
Could be 4. But was it
No
was straight 6 an option?
It was.
Okay. I'm homing in on a
I
potential.
think you are. It's a 9-year production run that perfectly encapsulated the 9 years it was built, because it started lean and hopeful, and by the end of its run, it was a fat shell of what it had once been.
Okay. That makes me that's got me tangentially thinking about a couple things that aren't the one that I initially thought of.
9 years and a fat shell of what it had been? Mm-hmm. And did you verify 6 cylinders?
Yes.
Okay.
Straight 6. Was that the only engine, or were there other
It was
engines?
only 6 cylinders in a row.
Does this car model a string of numbers and/or letters?
Well, I mean, most words are. But yes,
Rude.
it's a string of numbers
Sorry,
and
I
letters.
should not have said numbers and/or letters. It wasn't a word.
It wasn't a word, no.
Okay. All right.
It's not a first generation Supra.
No, but it would have been.
Something close.
When did the first generation Supras come out? That was the Celica Supra,
Yeah.
late 70s?
78 or 79.
So
Yeah.
this would have
Yeah,
preceded
broken
that by a
86.
generation,
A little
if it's the one I'm
Ooh,
thinking about.
preceding it.
Yes.
Y'all haven't asked the fuel injection or carburetor question. I'm a little
Well,
surprised.
I was thinking mostly carburetors. I don't know if the one I'm thinking of had injection or not.
Were they mostly 2 seats? Some occasional 4
Plus twos?
seats?
This, in fact, was the case. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Mostly 2 seats, occasionally 4 seats, but
And
there
the,
were,
the plus 2 added a little bit of eye pain when you looked at it from certain
was
angles.
not an attractive makeover for the
this
back
was
seat.
I don't hate it as much as most people, but I do understand.
This was a Datsun product.
It was, in fact, a Datsun product.
If you're in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that actually answers the question of letters and numbers, but only in certain places, because in other places, it was a lady.
A fair lady.
Skyline. That was later.
Before, actually.
No, 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
before.
Six,
And during,
60s.
but yeah.
So this is the Nissan 240, 260
and
Z?
280Z.
And 280Z.
Before they added the X.
Yeah,
it
that's
was all
because that was a different model, right?
Yes, it was all one generation, one chassis code.
Okay.
Although it did get considerably bigger and heavier over the time it was being built.
Okay.
Yes, the Datsun 240Z, known in some quarters as the Datsun Fairlady Z, but they
Or Nissan, yeah.
Nissan Fairlady Z,
Yeah.
but they kind of rightfully thought that probably wouldn't fly trying to sell it to testosterone young American males in 1970.
That was
So,
a good call.
yeah, I think so.
Well, because I feel like more than likely the vast majority of these sales, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later, were targeted at sub 40 men. Like,
yeah.
The guy who was behind this was a guy named Yutaka Katayama, who was and still is revered amongst people who work at Nissan and people who like old Nissans and Datsuns as kind of the architect of their American Renaissance in the 70s, when they really started to sell a lot of stuff. They had, aside from the 240Z, they had the 510, which is revered as being one of the first reliable, fun-to-drive economy cars. They had the Datsun truck, which was a big sales success. I actually spent some time in one of those as a little kid. And they had the Z car. So it was first built in 1969. It was introduced in Japan first, as per usual. They also got a 6-cylinder, but it was a 2-liter straight 6 was all they got in Japan early on. The engine was a development of the 510's engine. The 510 used what was called the L series, which was a straight 4 iron block aluminum head, single overhead cam, 2 valves per cylinder. The 510 got the L16 and the L18, which were 1.6 and 1.8 liter 4s. They stretched it into a 6-cylinder for the Z. And in America, the first gen, the 240Z, ran from 70 to 73, and it got the L24, so 2.4 liters.
So the 240Z, yep.
Right. It was small. It was originally 13 feet 7 inches, 2-door hatchback coupe on a 91-inch wheelbase. So really not a ton bigger than like a Miata.
Yeah.
Noticeably bigger, but not much.
Yeah,
20
I sorry to cut in.
Yeah,
I
you're fine.
just saw one at the Centralia Auto Show. There was a guy there with maybe it was a 73. It was a 240.
blue one.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's
original
neat.
owner. He has the tag.
It's cool.
Gorgeous. And I was like, walking past and I was like, stopped to look at it, talked to the guy. My dad came over after looking at muscle cars or whatever. And as we were walking away, I'm like, that's probably the most valuable car here by a bit. So there's going to be some custom hot rod stuff, but as far as original cars at that car show, that was probably it because
They've the really clean ones have serious value.
yeah, they're well into the 6 figures by now. I think 120. He had a printed out piece of paper from Bring a Trailer of all places because of course,
Right.
and it was like 131 or something.
Anything from Bring a Trailer,
Is
I like
ridiculous.
multiply by 2/3. But
His car, I totally believe, would be in the $60,000 to $70,000.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Hagerty says a really clean 70 in number 1 condition is worth knocking on 100,000.
Yeah.
There's a big spread because a number 4 condition, like a nice driver that we would look for, is about 10 grand. So there is some serious if you can find one. Right.
Sorry.
So-
I put us ahead of ourselves.
You're fine. 2,300 pound curb weight. So really, we're talking about roughly Miata size. They're not big.
Yeah.
It's a unibody, all independent suspension all around. The aforementioned Chapman involvement is the Chapman strut in the rear, which was kind of like a McPherson strut on a drive axle that uses the axle as one of the locators
Okay.
for the spindle.
Okay.
I believe they have another radius rod, but the axle itself is a locator.
Interesting.
And then they have basically a McPherson strut above that. Discs up front, drums in the back, 14-inch wheels. Let's see here. It was kind of the design brief. It was very much a product of its time and kind of a leap forward. Because at the time, if you were a performance automotive guy, you were in one of 2 camps. And you weren't rich. You were in one of 2 camps. You were either driving an MG or a Triumph or a Porsche 914 because you liked things that handled well and were slightly snooty. Or you were a muscle car guy and you liked to haul ass and it didn't turn, but you didn't care. And the 240Z kind of split the difference. It was cheap-ish. The original... it originally grossed right at $3,600, which today would be about $29,000.
Okay.
You compare that to a 914 or a Triumph GT6, which would kind of be the natural competition, would be a Triumph GT6 because it's a 2-door hatchback with a straight 6.
Right. Yep.
Same price, but the roughly that $3,500. But the Z would absolutely stomp it flat in a straight line and could handle with it. Muscle cars were cheaper, sort of, but the Z was already well equipped. It had a radio. It had carpet. It had all the stuff that you would, start adding up if you were buying something that was a muscle car.
And one of these probably couldn't touch a lot of the muscle cars in a straight line, but would just eat them up in the corners. I'm
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah.
They weren't slow. 0 to 60
Right.
in about 8 flat.
Yeah. I mean, they'd probably hang with them for a little bit, but what kind of horsepower?
149 horsepower originally, and net. So that is after it's about 165 gross. So
That's respectable.
more to be
honest.
had. They were very easy to tune, and there was almost immediately a really good aftermarket for them. They sold really well. They sold about 50,000 a year. They sold 500,000 of them over the 9-year run. So 50,000 sports cars a year, and they kind of killed off their competition because people stopped buying things like the TR6 and the 914 because this was better performance for the same money. They were, let's see here, what am I missing?
That kind of blows my mind that you could get into the baby Porsche, the 914, for 30 grand.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it though; those were slow.
Oh, I get that. But like,
Yeah, but now
just in
when a
today's
Boxster is
world,
70,
yes,
yeah,
like
Right.
more than double that. It's just kind of wild that at that period of time, Porsche as a company was okay with being in that market segment.
I think in Europe they might have been sold as a VW Porsche.
Oh, really?
Like they might have been sold like a crossover kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
But don't quote me on that. I'm not sure about that. They never had the cachet that the 911 had. And that was the third way to be a performance guy, was have a load of money and go buy either a 911 or an E-Type or a Corvette, which would both handle and haul ass.
Right.
But this was approachable speed. It was really the cheapest sports car you were going to find, with stuff like, four-wheel independent suspension, which really was the key to handling, because most of the muscle cars had, leaf springs and a live axle, and most of them didn't have good tires, or disc brakes up front in 1970 weren't standard on a lot of them.
Yeah. And this was 2/3 the weight of a lot of the muscle cars.
Yeah, I mean, when you consider that an A-body Chrysler, or so your Nova SS or your Duster 340 or your Maverick Grabber is going to be probably 800 or 900 pounds heavier.
Okay.
And that's the light end of the muscle car scale.
So not quite 2/3.
Not
but
quite 2/3.
Three quarters anyway.
That's a lot, though.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
That's 4 fat
25%
passengers.
lighter
Yeah.
is that's,
Well, and just based solely on the way that they look, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that the drag coefficient on a Z car is lower than something like a Maverick.
Probably.
Not that the Maverick is terrible, but it's just so much smaller in every dimension that once you hit 60, that you can get the horsepower goes further.
Yep.
They were an immediate sales success. Sold about 50,000 a year over the entire run. 71, 2, and 3 were still the 240Z. In 74 rather, the emissions were starting to get to it. It got an air pump, an EGR, and horrifically lean jetted carburetors, so they stroked it to pick up an extra 200cc. It was still about the same power, but now it wasn't very drivable because the emissions really kind of got to it. It was still using license-built SU carbs, which aren't a terrible design, but they didn't deal with the emissions era very well. This was the same problem that MG and Triumph were having too, trying to get their carbureted stuff to run correctly. So in America, it was a 1-year thing. For the 260Z was a 1-year thing, just 74.
Huh.
Really?
Gained about 125 pounds. About half of that was the 5 mile an hour bumpers. Half of that was air conditioning, which became more or less standard at that point. So we're up to about, I gained a little more than that. I gained about 250 pounds all told. We're up to about 2,600 pounds.
Okay.
Still light. They added the 2+2 as an option, which stretched it a foot and gave it kind of a weird hunchback look, and 2 vestigial seats. Price was up to about $5,000. So the way inflation worked in the 70s, that really wasn't as big a jump as you'd think. It was only about $32,000 base now.
Okay.
0 to 60 down to 10 seconds, quarter in about 17.8. And then in 75, they they went to Bosch and said, "Hey Bosch, what you got for us? We need to fix this drivability issue." And Bosch said, "We have K-Jet." And Nissan's like, "We'd like one better." So they got L-Jetronic electronic fuel injection, which solved most of the drivability issues.
Okay.
Boarded out, got another 200 cc of displacement, so now we're up to 2.8 liters on the same basic straight six architecture. 0 to 60 down to 9 seconds, and the quarter back around 17 flat, depending on which model you're, depending on which road test you're looking at. So still not as fast as the original 70 to 73 240, but getting back towards that, and with much more flexibility.
Yeah.
The displacement didn't hurt anything in terms of, puttering around town. You won't see that on like the road test stat sheet, but you'll notice it when you've got more displacement to leave,
And you say that increase in displacement was a result of stroking the engine, a larger stroke? Or
it was originally, for the 240 to the 260, it was stroked.
Okay.
And then 260 to 280 was bore.
Okay.
So the original 240 was, let me find it, 83 millimeter bore by 73 millimeter stroke. By the time they got to the 280, it was an 86 millimeter bore by a 70 millimeter stroke. Sorry, 79 millimeter stroke.
Okay.
So still, it was over square the whole time. It liked to rev. Redline 7000, which went a long way towards making it feel fast.
Right.
Because by the time you're revving an American V8 from that era to 7,000 RPM, you've blown it up at 6,000
Yeah,
usually.
You can see all the
Yeah.
rods as they
Yeah.
fly over your car.
It's the visible engine, and not in a good way.
The visible, highly
Visible
kinetic.
V8, yeah. Like, I thought this was made out of lucite. Well, that would have been a good idea.
I didn't remember this push rod being in my leg.
Definitely by the end of the run, by the late 70s, it was starting to shift towards being more of a GT car than a sports car. It was still not heavy, but it was a lot heavier than it had been. It was, the emphasis was more on comfort. And then in 79, they brought out the 280ZX, which was an evolutionary step. And that was just a GT car. They got bigger, heavier, fancier, louverier. I mean, I like louvers in the right situation. Don't get me wrong, louvers and knockaducts, and yeah, good stuff.
They also added a turbo though, so it
They
wasn't all bad.
and that turbo was automatic only for the first year.
Really?
Yep.
They didn't have
Wow.
a transmission that would survive.
Yep.
Eh.
Well, they for some reason they didn't buy the T5 that year. The next year they bought a T5, and yeah. By the time it ran out, it was about $6,300 in 1978. So, or $6,800 for the 2+2. So that's about, for the base 2-seater was about $37,000. So you're starting to get some serious price creep.
Yeah.
And almost over 40 today for a 2+2. So it wasn't the screaming deal it had been, but people still liked it. It was still reliable. It was still,
Well, as we've talked about in other episodes, the late 70s was sort of everybody just trying to do whatever they could to keep customers happy.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is moving into the luxury, the personal luxury market, because we couldn't produce 450 horsepower
Right.
grid blocks anymore. That just wasn't allowed.
Right.
So let's make it just cushy.
Mm-hmm.
And that costs money in different ways. So that's probably part of the scope, the price creep. But
and 0 to 60 in 10 seconds in the late 70s was
Yeah.
not slow.
No, it's
Again,
fine.
by the era, it was respectable.
Yeah.
I mean, 0 to 60 in 10 seconds wasn't slow until the late 80s.
For a performance car, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
No, like the fuel injected 5-liter Mustang was like fast, and it was in barely the 6 seconds range, like 6.8.
depending on, that depended a lot on rear end gears. I think a
Sure.
stock 5-liter, was under 7, and that was pretty quick. Same
Yeah.
with like a TPI Camaro.
Yeah.
Would be under 7, and then you're looking, mid to low 15s, maybe the high 14s if
Yeah.
you're, I remember growing up, if it ran in the 14s, that was where my brain started to pay attention. Like once
Same here.
once you crack that
14's in the quarter mile.
once you crack 14.99, it's like, oh, okay, I'm listening.
Which is just so funny in today's
Right.
world of,
Yeah.
a not the fanciest version of the Civic, but just the regular, like, I don't want the base Civic, is probably like a low 14-second car. The Sport.
I think it's like a 15 flat, but still, yeah. When you consider that that's economy car numbers now,
Right.
This guy with the Civic, am I right?
Oh, God. This is the first thing that came to mind. Because I couldn't go with
we
Toyota.
should K-swap it. Sorry.
That one
we
doesn't.
should
Yeah,
K-swap it.
that one doesn't have a case.
No, it
or
doesn't.
K series. But I was like, my first stop is usually Toyota.
Yeah.
And Toyota goes from the base Corolla to the GR, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of space in between
Yeah.
those two. So
Your options are 120 horsepower or 300 horsepower.
yeah, you don't.
There is no middle ground.
Yeah, and then I was like, other companies that make cars. Oh, okay, I'm done. That's it. The Koreans, but
Yeah.
it's like, come
No,
on, guys.
I was just giving you.
Ford?
I was just giving you a hard time
I
about
know.
the Civic thing.
Yeah, I will never live that down. I understand that. It's going to be like 15 years later. We've all decided we hate each other after this podcast. We don't want to talk anymore. And Alan's just going to send me an angry message one night, just ranting about the Civic episode.
You really think it'll take 15 years?
Just the rant. It could be an annual rant. I don't know. It's like Christmas Eve every year. I get a text from Alan, and it's just filled with podcast
the
grievances.
Festivus airing of grievances.
Yeah.
I got a lot of problems with your podcast, and you're going to hear about them.
Brought to you by Marie Kondo's new KonMarie line of ignition products. When your current plugs, wires, coil, or ignition module no longer spark joy for your car or truck, turn to KonMarie ignition products. So the Datsun. At what point did it become? Did we start calling them Nissan?
In 83 and 84,
Yeah, because it was...
Nissan decided to start marketing it as Nissan over here. They had marketed things as Datsun in Japan originally, and started marketing cars here as Datsun, and then they started marketing things as Nissan in Japan, but they kept Datsun marketing over here, and I don't exactly understand why, except I think they were just trying to stick with the established brand.
So we've talked back in the olden days when I actually went to school for such things. This was something we discussed, and the lore is that Nissan wanted to enter the American market, but they were a little afraid. So they used Datsun as a way to enter and see how things were, and if it bombed, they could come back as Nissan in 10 years
Yeah,
that's fair.
and have a better understanding of the American market. But Datsun took off, and they were like, oh, shit, are we going to keep Datsun? And then they eventually in the 80s were like, okay, we
Slowly
need
break
to
it to 'em.
transition. It was...
So
these Z cars were always Datsun.
in the 70s, yes, they were always Datsun.
When
The
did the
first
280Z? When was the last?
79 was the last year. 70 to 79 is the run. S30 is the chassis code for the
Okay.
original Z car.
Yep.
When
And
did
that was the run.
so the ZX went out, and was that 83, and then 84
83
was
was the last year.
300?
83 was the last year for the 280ZX, and then 84 was the first year for the 300. I had a friend in high school who had
Yeah, the
an
Z31.
84 300ZX,
Yeah.
which was the super wedgy, super high tech looking.
Oh, yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
as 80s a car as
Oh,
you
yeah.
can
And
think of.
they're also not fast. Well, we thought it was fast at the time
Of
because
course.
by comparison, it was fast.
Well, we were
Yeah,
teenagers. We
compared-
would drive it fast.
I have vivid memories. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast, but we were late for a funeral once, and I got to play.
All the best stories start out this way.
I got to play Rally Navigator down a stretch of road between two small towns in Missouri that I knew really well, and that my driver, who owned this car, had never driven.
You about doxed him.
So down this 18-mile-an-hour stretch of road, went back and did the math later. We averaged 104 miles an hour, and this is like multiple like 45 mile an hour, and I mean 45 mile an hour
yes.
turn, and like several there were a couple of level grade railroad crossings that we legitimately caught air on because we bottomed out hard.
Yeah, as a guy who's driven, I can picture the kind of roads you're talking about. That's a fast pace to maintain.
It's Highway U between Sedalia and Colcamp.
And teenagers on your way to a funeral. Was this
We
funeral?
were pallbearers.
Oh,
That was the thing. And
Well, I'm just picturing like you're on your way to a funeral for a teenager who died in a car wreck, and then
it was
you...
not.
Okay, good.
It's
At least
way
there's that.
sadder than that.
Okay.
But yeah. Yeah.
So was this at least a turbo ZX?
Nope.
Wow.
Naturally aspirated.
Okay.
Had a digital speedometer, and I looked over and saw 130 a couple times, and then I was like, I'm not looking over anymore. I don't want to know.
Was the ZX turbo a single bank feed turbo?
Yes. Yes, it
The
was
300,
a single.
of course.
300
The first
ZX was a single.
Because I know
T3.
Saab
Yeah.
did it.
They just fed one side
Yeah,
to it.
and
Yeah.
I'd forgotten until just now that Nissan also did that.
It wasn't particularly high boost either. I think it was
No.
6 or 7 pounds. Like it only went from 160 to like 205. It was not a huge.
But for
Performance
1984, 5, whenever
They
that
were-
came out,
they
it's
were neat.
pretty good. Okay, back to the S30 240 to 280Z. Yeah, was there more? Have we
I
exhausted
do
your,
have more.
your
I do
file?
have more.
Yeah.
I actually followed Hot Wheels built a bunch of them.
Hot Wheels. Yeah.
As
Yes,
did Matchbox.
yes.
The one they really tend to sell a lot of has big old fender flares and a big ducktail spoiler. Looks good. Let's see here. Other
Drift
stuff.
special.
The biggest downside to the S30 Datsun overall
I know.
was the tin worm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My goodness, they like to rust. Even
Yes.
by 70s vehicle standards, they
Yes.
were, and that's why there just aren't that many of them. 500,000 of them built, most of them rotted out to nothing. Aside from that, there's not really, they don't have a ton of vices. They're very reliable, even by modern standards. They're comfortable enough. They're relatively long-legged on the highway. The early cars only had a 4-speed, so they get a little out of breath at 75, 80 miles an hour, but you can retrofit a 5-speed from a later car, and they started getting 5 speeds being really common around the time the 280Z came out. There's a lot of aftermarket for them. There's a lot of restoration parts for them. They were popular to fix up. This is kind of wild. In 1998, Nissan, in celebrating their 50th anniversary in America, actually did a factory restoration program where they said, hey, you know what? We will sell, we've bought a bunch of 240Zs that we found. We've restored them at our factory, and we will sell you one for $24,000.
Wow. What year was this?
1998.
Holy moly.
So
Guess how many they actually sold?
Not as many as they should have. I bet.
50.
50. Yeah.
People were like, yes, I'd like a restored 240Z for the price of a new Civic, but nope.
But
Well,
if,
I mean, more than
well,
that.
if we
1998,
could go back
but yeah.
in time, all of us would be
Yeah,
like, shut up
yes,
and take my
yes,
money.
I'll take
Well,
4.
yeah.
Right.
Well, because that's probably, what, 50 grand
It'd
now?
probably be
at
45, 50
Yeah.
now. But having
That's
been
a
restored
screaming
by people who
deal.
built it originally
Yeah.
with Nissan factory parts, yeah. It
Well-
just, they even Nissan was surprised. Like, really? You guys don't want this? You know?
That's crap.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in 1998, things had progressed a little bit. There were a lot of probably pretty good options, new cars that people
There were, but that was the point where nostalgia was starting to get really strong for people from, you know, what people wanted, what they'd driven in the 70s. The problem was at the time, in 1998, you could go find a clean driver for 6 or 7, probably,
Yeah.
if you could find it.
Clean might have been a tall order in 1998, but I know
right.
what you're saying.
You
Yes.
know, not terminal rust.
Yeah, you
and-
just get the
and
best one you can
attractive.
find,
Right.
and you're in better shape than getting a
Right.
$25,000 restored one.
Japan did get the cool stuff as per the usual compared to America. They built a few in 1970 or 71. I think they built a few hundred that had a twin cam 24 valve straight 6 making like 200 horsepower. That was still built on the L bottom end. It was just a fancy head.
It was they referred to it as like the S something, right?
It was the S432.
Yeah.
Yeah. Never got it here. But there was a lot of aftermarket, and the L series was, and it was a very budget hop up friendly motor. You could make it make more power relatively easily, and because all the tricks that worked on the 510 also worked on the Z, it's just 2 extra cylinders, and they put that L engine in everything in the 70s on into the 80s. Like the early Maxima had it. Pretty much any rear wheel drive Nissan up until they started using V6s in about 84 was going to use a derivative of the L series, and they built a ton of them, and there were a lot of parts out there to hop it up.
Didn't they keep using that in the truck until 88 or 9?
I-
Like the L20 or L24?
I think
Or
they
no.
had gone to the Z by
The
then,
Z.
which was a derivative of the L.
Yeah.
and then that became the
KA.
the KA in the 240 SX in the 90s.
Yeah. And the
Very similar. It was all evolutionary stuff.
hard body.
See here in motorsports, they absolutely dominated SCCAC production for all 9 years. They were pretty much the entire podium in C production road racing when they were being built. They drove most of the sports car competitors out of business in that Triumph stopped selling the GT6 and the TR6, I think, as well. The 914 hung around for a while because it was kind of a smaller, and it was also a Targa.
Well, and
But they really started taking up all the oxygen in that market segment.
Interesting, yeah.
let us not forget, though, the time period with which Triumph was operating within.
It's true.
Yes. Good old
Are you
British
saying
Leyland.
They were kind of coming to an end anyway,
Well,
or
it
just
was more just
struggling?
like they were handed a series of instructions that they were required to follow, and that did not include probably continuing to make.
performance touring.
Well, I mean, yes, but
Killed the Opel GT.
yeah,
They stopped selling that here because they're like, nobody's buying it. Killed the Jensen Healy. Nobody's buying it.
Yeah.
The cheaper stuff like the Spitfire and the MG Midget still sold, but they were a lot cheaper and smaller.
Okay.
And were convertibles. So, yeah.
So
They
this only came in the two body styles, right?
Yes.
The 2 and the 2+2 hard
There
tops
was
only.
never a convertible in this generation, and it was always just a two-door hatchback.
That's a plus in my book.
Yeah. Did the 300 have a convertible? Because I don't think the ZX did.
The 300ZX from 84 to 89 didn't.
Yeah, I know the 90s one did.
The 90s one did get an actual drop top. It wasn't super popular. But the ZX and the ZX introduced T-tops, which was really popular. And the Z never got that, I don't think. They never actually put T-tops on the Z.
I'm sure
I think
somebody
that was a...
I'm
somebody's
sure.
tried.
Yeah.
somebody probably did a whole lot of aftermarket ones.
Yeah. But ASL McLaren or whatever,
ASC
ASC McLaren,
yeah.
yeah.
American Sunroof Corporation.
Yeah.
Still blows my mind.
Boy, they
That's
got
what
the
it
top
stands
off a
for.
lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Or poorly installed a piece of plastic and like, ooh, a moonroof.
Yeah, with the little dots sprayed on it because that's sun protection.
It was the first reliable sports car that was inexpensive. And that's kind of its legacy. And in the 80s, by the time the 80s came around, and even the late 70s, everybody else was trying to get in the game too. Toyota built the Celica. Honda built the Prelude, which was a different design brief because it was a four-cylinder and it was front-wheel drive, but eventually it kind of swam in the same waters.
Okay.
Mitsubishi built the Starion, and that was more in the 80s. I forget what they called the version, the sports coupe they had in the 70s, but they had some stuff. But it
Was that
really
the Cordia?
maybe I'm not sure.
Something in that vein, I think.
So what brought about the demise of this one? Was it just the evolution into
It
the
was
280Z?
just evolution into the ZX,
So it was
yeah.
replaced by the ZX, and that was
Which looks very similar. It is. It just looks like a stretched 280Z
Okay.
with big black rubber bumpers and T-tops usually.
Yep.
It had the same straight six. A lot more of those were automatics. You could get an automatic in a 240, 60, or 80. Not very many people did.
I would imagine it was still a 3-speed too.
It was still a 3-speed. By the time the 280ZX came out, the automatic was the more popular, or 50-50 choice.
Yeah.
There were a lot of them. And then the 84 redesign, when they put the V6 in it and made it the 300ZX, was more of a sports car. It was still heavy, but it had more oomph, and it was starchier handling. And they were really trying to have their cake and eat it too. And by that point, electronic fuel injection was good enough they kind of could,
Yep.
Anyway, what's it cost now, you ask? A 1970 240Z in number one condition. Hagerty says it's $83,000.
Yeah.
In number 4 condition, what we'd be looking for would be about 10 grand. So not absurdly high.
But the problem is to find said vehicle, you're going to have to go to Arizona.
Yeah, basically.
Or, I don't know, Montana?
Someplace out of their salt belt. The 260Z, the 280Z is a little cheaper. A number 1 car will set you back about 70. Number 4, about 8.
I would not have guessed that the 280Z with the 5-mile-an-hour bumpers would be nearly as valuable as the 240.
See, they're still pretty. It was when they put the black rubber bumpers on when they went to the ZX that they really kind of effed it up. But yeah,
Everybody was doing it.
everybody was.
That was the workaround for the standards.
Yeah,
Well,
and chrome was passé at that point. You know, the black plastic was the wave of the future.
Well, and we saw this in other areas because I've talked about my disdain for the evolution of the C3 Corvette, but it was going through the same time period.
It was, yeah.
And then you get to 84 with the Corvette and the Z, and they have a full redesign with the current modern safety requirements, and the cars look good. As much as, people argue about C4s, but
Yeah.
I think that the 300Z is a big step back towards what the original 240 was. It's not necessarily as pretty, but it at least has good balance on
I was
proportions and that sort of stuff.
I was thinking the same as you, Jordan, as far as, early C3s, those beautiful chrome bumpers that didn't look, they weren't obtrusive, they were small, they looked tasteful, and as things
flat
went
rear
on.
window, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as things went on, they got a little less good looking. But
Yeah, they suffer in
plasticky.
comparison
But-
because if you take
Sure.
a 79 or 80 Vet,
Agreed.
with the hatchback and the rubber bumper, the elastomeric or whatever, Enduro, whatever it was, but the urethane bumpers on either side, it's still pretty.
Yeah.
It just it's
I agree with you. The C3 is a good looking car all through but when you look back at the earlier ones,
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, those
Still,
look better
that's
to me.
better. Yeah.
To me, and I think
And that's fair. I think that's I'm seeing all of this through the eyes of somebody who didn't start looking at cars until like the late 90s.
Yeah.
So I look back and at the chrome bumper cars and like, oh, that's peak late 60s American car styling.
which I love.
And then you get to 1980 and it's just like, oh, this is sad. The whole time period is sad. Everything looks so weird.
I think the Malaise era cars that aren't trying to be what they had been are more successful.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at something like, well, just for example, I was looking the other day at a 79 or 80 Chrysler Cordoba, and it's not trying to be anything it had been before. Now, Dodge sold a Charger that looked like the Cordoba, and if you look at a Charger and you're like, that's not an effing Charger. Get out of here with that weak stuff. But the Cordoba is like, it's a product of its time. It's got rich Corinthian leather. I like it, It just suffers by comparison because you're looking at the Glory era names and you're like, it's not.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah. So the stuff like the Vet where they just did keep that long running.
Yeah, they used to. Are they still doing that these days? Or are the automakers sticking to a platform for 15 plus years at a run? Like,
Sometimes.
is that?
I mean,
I've had a few of them, Fox Body, Mustang, and these are older things I've had. The Corvette was that way.
I think they'll make incremental
Camaros.
improvements to a platform for a much longer period of time now.
Well,
Okay.
the Chrysler 300 is a good example.
That was
of
what I immediately went to. That was 18 years, and that was not new technology at the time because it was a couple-year-old Mercedes E-Class. But even still,
So they are still doing it, but maybe the safety and emission standards haven't changed as drastically during that
Right.
18 years as it did in the middle of the energy crisis,
Right.
which is what we're talking about here.
I feel like the peak level for like improvements in safety and emissions, like the quantum leap, was the mid 80s till late 90s.
Yeah.
That 15-year period where it was like, we got airbags, we've got anti-lock brakes, we've got catalytic converters, we've got super ultra low emission vehicles that now, all it puts out is CO2 essentially. And I feel like that was kind of the sweet spot. And since then, things have maybe been getting a little safer and a little cleaner, but not nearly as much.
We were steep on the curve
Yes.
back then, yes.
they're
That makes sense.
they're getting to diminishing returns on that stuff, but they're getting more power out of stuff, so I can't complain about that.
Yeah, that's fair. Because
Yeah.
1999, a Mustang would have been what, 225 horsepower for a GT?
245,
Was it
I think,
245?
but still.
Well,
Yeah,
that a 99 would have been the first year for the PI, the performance improved version, right?
Yeah, I think that was 245 or 255, and now they're a nice round like 410, 415.
I don't know, a bunch.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. No.
Yeah.
They got all of the important stuff out of the way in that 15 to 20 year time period, and then they got to the end of it, and you're like, well, now we have all these engineers. What should we do? Power. I don't know. They got to compete in other ways because, suspension design isn't going to change all that much.
Yeah.
It's just not.
I mean, they've gotten better though.
Oh, yeah.
You, like ride stuff now with like.
But they're doing the fine tuning,
Right.
And the fine tuning makes a huge difference. But like the actual designs haven't changed.
Right. You drive something out of the 70s and it feels like a buckboard. You drive something out of the 90s, it's like this is a little dated, but yeah.
And if it's in good factory-esque condition, most of the time it's not going to drive really any different than an equivalent vehicle of
Right.
current standard.
Up to 9/10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of like you hop in an economy car today versus one from the 90s, and most of the time they're not going to feel that different when
Not
you
really.
hit a pothole.
Quieter now,
Yes.
but yeah. So, would we buy it?
Love to, can't.
Kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in college, the big thing with these was to find one and swap in a small block Chevy. There was even like a web forum that was just guys who were like, you can make better, L Series is nice, but you can make better power with a small block Chevy, which is true. Yeah. They have a nice big engine bay, and small block Chevy drops in quite easily. But they've just kind of dried up. All of them have either been fixed up or hoarded or beaten to death and junked.
Mm-hmm. I looked at these many years back, 15, 20 years ago now. I took a little bit of a deep dive and thought, I got into some old rear-wheel drive Japanese stuff and thought, this is kind of cool. And the Z cars came on my radar. And I'm like, man, those are cool. Let's look into them. And they're unobtainable. You can't find one I have never seen one for sale that any of us have access to that we're looking for. Now, if I was looking for a nice one and willing to go somewhere, that's fine. But I'm saying ones that popped up on Craigslist 15 and 10 years ago were not worth restoring. They weren't worth having because of that. I mean, if it was really nice, it was worth a lot and probably wasn't around here. And if it's anything that's been in Missouri for a few years that's made of metal, has rust. These things had a lot of rust. I remember talking to a guy way before that at an autocross one day. He showed up with one of these, and I looked over it. And I'm like, man, this thing is cool. And they made quite a few of these, so I bet parts are pretty easy to come by. And he looked at me like I've grown two heads. Like, what are you talking about? No, these things are terrible to find parts for, which kind of surprised me because, like you said, they built 50,000 a year during the time.
That may have been before the restoration market really.
Yeah,
popped up.
One experience in the mid-90s is what I'm talking about.
That's what I was going to ask was what time period, because I've noticed this with MR2 parts. Back when I first started thinking about buying a first generation MR2 10 years ago, it was hard to find stuff.
Yeah.
And there's still some things that are unattainable, but the availability has gone up. There's several companies that manufacture parts or have sourced replacement style parts. Rebuilding a 4AG is way more expensive than it used to be.
Yeah.
But you can buy things like rubber gaskets for trim pieces. So
Yeah. That's
I think it's one of those time period things. That if you had been investigating in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, stuff would be picking up.
yeah. Well,
I've noticed that with muscle car parts too.
Yes.
Like the stuff that's not, 20 years ago, you could build a 69 Camaro out of a catalog. But Mopar guys and anybody else who wasn't trying to build a Mustang or a Camaro,
right.
maybe a Chevelle or a Nova, would complain if they couldn't get anything.
Exactly.
Maybe you could get quarter panels. Maybe.
If you wanted the Mercury version of a Ford, good luck. If you wanted the Buick or Pontiac or Buick or Oldsmobile automobile version of a GM muscle car, good luck, right? It's harder.
It's still, the market is still the parts are everywhere for a Mustang or Camaro, but you can build a lot. You can get a lot of parts for other stuff, a lot, which is nice.
Well, that was one comment that I heard in the mid '90s. Take it for what it's worth, but yes, I would love to have one of these things. I like everything about them. They look cool. Those headlight buckets, that detail is really cool. You know, long hood, neat car.
They're an attainable E-Type.
Straight six, rear wheel drive, standard transmission is just 1/2 a point below on my trifecta, my triangle for what I like in a car, because a straight six is just about as cool as a V8. And so, yeah, I would love to own one of these things. And, you know, if the right deal came along, I would like to say I would, but I just so confident that deal's not going to come along just because of how badly they rusted. And, I mean, when I said I looked into these a little deeper 10, 15 years ago, California cars were rusty, you know, like, and I'm not saying you look at them from the outside and they're full of rust holes. I just mean they've got rust in there, and it doesn't really matter how much, because you've got to fix it, which is a full restoration.
Roadkill has a I think it's a 280 project car that they've swapped multiple different Datsun straight sixes, and they call it the Ratson because it's crusty, and it came out of a yard in California.
Yep.
I mean, they rust.
Yep.
For me, the Z I want to buy is the one that was new when I was in college. You know, the 350Z or even the 370 are starting to. The problem you get here is that they've all been beaten on.
Yeah.
Which is the problem with any performance car. But you know, if you're willing to hunt, I think that's kind of the sweet spot for good performance, and those are massively quick cars. V6 and all, but you know,
the first two 300 series cars are basically gone.
Yeah,
like the 80s model and the 90s ones have been pretty thin on the ground. Like even the 90s ones, which went to 95 or 6,
something like that.
That I think they sold quite a few of them between 90 and 93. You know, 100,000 perhaps, but they are just all gone now. And I don't know where they went because they didn't rust at the same rate.
I see they're essentially bomb proof. I have seen in the last couple of years non-turbos,
which was way more common. Yeah,
and even still, even the naturally aspirated ones are fast.
Yeah, it's like 220 horsepower.
It's a non-turbo. It's usually an automatic, but I'll see those for sale. And they are not absurdly expensive.
Yeah.
They're also not absurdly fun to drive. But you know.
Yeah, those way too much to deal with 200 horsepower as being a...
The 90s range topper sports cars, you know, the RX-7 and the Supra, deservedly or not, are now just in bonkers land prices.
Yeah.
If they're running. I mean, and the RX-7s... Honestly, the prices are high enough. I think they've all been resurrected, because it used to be you could buy one with a blown-up rotary and swap in a V8, and I think it's gotten to the point now where it's cost-effective to buy one with a blown-up rotary, pay the absurd cost of rebuilding that blown-up rotary, and then sell it.
Yeah,
and that's wild to me. And you know, Supras have just exploded in price out of all relation to reality. So that leaves us with the 3000 GT/Stealth. Which, yes, I love them, and no, I don't want to own them, because they are just insanely complex.
Well, and then you also have the other side of that is particularly the 3000 GT. The Nissan had this too. Was the range topper for the 3000 GT, the twin turbo all-wheel drive Spider, so those folding hardtop from the 90s. Is like 3,800 pounds. It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think the convertibles are over 4.
Wow. Okay, so perhaps the hardtop
I
is
think the
38,
hardtop
39.
is knocking on 4.
Which,
wow.
I get. It's twin turbo, it's all-wheel drive, it's got a V6 in it, which almost certainly has a cast iron block. Like, I get why it weighs that much, but I just can't. I just can't even remotely consider that. Before you get to the part where you own a Mitsubishi from the 90s that has a V6 and 2 turbos transversely front-wheel drive oriented in the engine bay. Jeez. Holy crap, 4,100 pounds.
4,123 pounds for the VR4 Spider.
Wow.
VR4 hardtop, so that was the twin-turbo all-wheel drive hardtops, 37. Which, I mean, it's heavy for the day, but anymore, I mean...
Well, and a twin-turbo Supra is 3,600 pounds. They're not light.
No.
300ZX is right there. The RX-7, of course, is...
Lighter.
Very
26.
Yeah, much lighter.
Too light. Like they were... They were as light as they could be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's because of those 4, it was the only one that was like a real sports car. Mm-hmm. Everything else was a GT.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
We were talking about the more modern 300s.
Yeah,
more modern what we would buy instead of one of these, I guess.
I mean, they just built a new 300. They've got a 400Z now that just came out last year.
Yeah.
There's one in town. It's neat. It is very much retro. Like, you can definitely see the familial influence of like the 240, and they are not insanely expensive. They're way cheaper than a Supra. I think they're starting at like 40.
I think part of that is it's a evolution of the 350, 370 platform. So the platform itself is a little aged, but if you're not competing, I doubt you'll even notice. You know, the Supra is going to win on a track, but it's because
it's a
Toyota and BMW teamed up with all of the money and built
the
something.
track in mind.
Yeah, and the track in mind. Whereas, and that as arguably more of a performance-oriented sports car, whereas the 400Z, I bet, is more targeted at like your regular Mustang GT buyer. It's going to be somebody who wants to have something that sounds cool and looks cool, and they go out and drive it on the weekends and maybe tear up some back roads, but they're not gonna turn it into a full-blown track car more than likely. But who knows? I don't own one. It makes 400 horsepower and has a turbo V6 in it. It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. But no, like when they went back to the 350, they definitely they pivoted their direction back to the original car because it's not light, but it is
lighter
much
than
lighter.
It was.
Yeah.
And the 370Z actually was lighter than the 350Z.
Yeah.
Like, and smaller.
No, they did a
better
good job.
looking. Like, they're like, it was, I remember when that came out and they're like, this is the first time we can say honestly that a car's, in I don't know how long, that a car's replacement is smaller and lighter than its predecessor.
Well,
not by a lot, but notably.
That does not happen very often anymore.
Because that was before the ND Miata, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
The ND Miata was 20.
It was lighter than the NC.
It was. Not a ton, but a little.
Yeah.
And,
But yeah, they did a good job with that. I don't know. It's neat. It's real shame that I don't have confidence that Nissan's going to be here in like 15 years. They're
had some struggles.
well,
they're really fighting Mitsubishi for that Chrysler of Japan moniker.
Yeah.
It's like they tied up with Renault. It's like there's a winner. You know?
Yeah.
But
that's been going on for a while too.
Yeah.
Part of the problem is that Mitsubishi can literally just be like, you know what, we're not going to make cars anymore. We're going to go back to making all
make heavy
the other
equipment.
stuff.
Yeah,
that
they make ships and ship engines and construction equipment.
Right.
And
Whereas Nissan's just going to be like, well, I guess we're done. Shut all the factories. Go home, because they don't really make anything else. Do
like
they?
they make commercial trucks.
Yeah,
and that would probably keep them around for a bit.
Yeah,
but that's the thing with the vertical integration in the Japanese market is all the companies, except I think all of the companies make something else. You know, Subaru makes heavy equipment,
pianos.
Yeah, Yamaha.
Pianos.
Yamaha's everywhere.
Yeah.
Mitsubishi makes both their vehicles, heavy equipment, and components for everybody else. Like, you could open the hood of 90% of vehicles, and at some point you're going to find a Mitsubishi part.
Interesting.
It'll be the one that's broken.
That is a possibility. Very bad, but okay.
No, that is a very good possibility, but
I don't know. I'm still looking at buying one of those micro wanker SUVs.
Yep. Well, that's
Jordan. If it makes it in, if the earlier one didn't make it in, Jordan schooled me on pronunciation. So yes, the Pajero is the Pajero.
And don't say it with the soft
Don't say it with
J.
a soft J around a Spanish or Latin American person because they will giggle.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than making a person giggle.
But maybe we can start a micro wanker club.
Can we meet remotely, please?
Well, on that note, I think
we're meeting on Zoom. Turn your camera off.
On that note, we've had fun learning about the early, what was it, the S30? S30 platform, the early 240, 260, and 280 Datsun Z cars. All you pajeros out there, stay fresh, cheese bags.
Js and Wahnkers.
All right, Wanker Club meeting adjourned.